be. I'm joined by John Jacobs and Jack Milner, two JJs, looking at the past week in the world of professional wrestling and I suppose sports entertainment. If you are Vince McMahon or John Laurinaitis, JJ, we'll start with the big news. You and I both set our alarms to see CM Punk return to the world of pro wrestling, and I don't know. I wasn't disappointed. I don't know about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it was perfect. I said to you I was worried that I was going to have to stay up the whole hour, but they kicked it off with that, and I thought it was just the perfect way to bring him in. Everyone knew it was happening, but it wasn't confirmed. AEW have got a bit of a history of botching these intros.
Pretty much, yeah.
Christian,
even Jamie Hayter last week. She looked. Jamie Hayter. I'll give everything up for Jamie Hayter as she's going to be in a new role, but nobody knew who she was because she changed her look. But they didn't plug it. At least with Punk, they laid a few like nuggets and Easter eggs.
Yeah, I mean, you got Christian previously where they were like they built it up way too much. The way they brought in Andrade El Idolo was just rubbish. I didn't think Miro coming in was particularly exciting, but then they're learning clearly from what they've done. They've thought about this. It's the biggest return in wrestling for a hell of a long time. You can probably come up with what the best. This is Hogan to WCW, is it, or
in terms of heat? Hogan to WCW wasn't that impressive. It was a lot of fanfare. If you remember, it was Jimmy Hart and him with a parade on the way to Disney MGM Studios in '94. In terms of debuts, Jericho's pretty up there just because of its time. It was seen as quite a steal for WWF at the time. We'd probably got the new blood of talent was Edge and Christian. It was Val Venus, but Jericho was seen as not necessarily a top guy, but he was a name. He'd been around. He was in ECW, he was in Mexico and Japan. In terms of debuts, I can't ever think of anyone. I mean, that is, for me, it's the greatest debut of all time immediately. Tony Schiavone, a man who has seen more wrestling than you and I will ever collectively see or call matches, have called it the greatest night in the hit. I mean, he was, the greatest night in the history of our great sport whenever Sting attacked the NWO. But in terms of this as a fanfare, I've never seen anything like it. And the only thing I could possibly compare it to is Aguero winning the title for Man City in 2012. That reaction and that immediate burst of like, oh my God, what just happened? Yeah. And then, he turns and he cuts a brilliant promo where he puts over. Well, his first words were, God, I feel like Britt Baker in Pittsburgh. So you immediately put over the women's champion as being the hottest star in the company. He calls out Darby Allin. He mentions the young stars he worked with. Whilst I thought he was very subtle the way that he took, not necessarily knocks at WWE, but he explained his reason why leaving and explained his reason why he had to be away. You are never going to get healthy being in the same place that got you sick in the first place, which was...
Yeah, and he never actually said the words WWE. He never mentioned Vince. He never did any of that. He did mention Ring of Honor.
I really hope he's not on Chris Jericho's podcast the next few weeks. I'll just say that.
Yeah, you kind of don't want to see it, do you? They've done enough of this burying WWE, and they just don't need to. Like, there's no... WWE and other ones that have got a counter program them. They don't need to be... You just don't need to worry about that pissant company anymore. They're the big deal now.
For Triple H.
CM Punk, they're going to have Daniel Bryan soon. I mean, it's just, I just think it was the perfect way to bring him in. I loved every second of it. Brilliant that they had Cult of Personality. That's my favourite of his themes. He's got a few good ones. I don't know about you. You would have seen him more in Ring of Honor than what I did. But were you happy with Cult of Personality?
Well, yeah, very much so. I mean, he turned to Cult of Personality. People don't remember this. Back in 2005, he was a huge babyface. He had a massive turn in late 04, early 05. He had a big feud with Jimmy Rave. And then he went and won he won the feud with Jimmy Rave in a cage match to go get a title shot against Austin Aries. God, can't believe this 2005, 16 years ago. And he won the title and immediately cut a promo and turned heel, which was, unbelievable genius from him and Gabe Sapolsky. He said, I found a snake and I raised him back to health. And then the snake bit the old man. He's stupid old man. I'm a snake. And I said, the greatest thing the devil ever did was made you people think I didn't believe, he didn't exist. And you're looking at him. And then he turned on the crowd the week after. I think Ring of Honor had a show in Dayton, Ohio, where he came out to Cult of Personality. he signed his WWE contract on the belt, and then that led to the Summer of Punk for the next 2 months, where he wrestled. He wrestled the top young stars in the company to try and put them over. Roderick Strong, Jay Lethal, I think Colt Cabana, James Gibson, and then he lost the title to James Gibson. It was a big four-way with John Danielson, but that was the sign of him turning, and he'd kind of alluded to it on his Instagram. But it was good to see that kind of bear through. And it's weird, like Punk the Final Chapter, which is his last day, and he alluded to it in his promo, 13th of June 2005. In Chicago, he drops down to his knees in the middle of the ring, and the ring gets filmed with streamers, and it was him on the stage, and it's so weird having seen him then and then now. It's a weird moment of serendipity and how everything kind of comes full circle. But yeah, I mean, fair play to WWE for trying to counter program it, but I think Brock Lesnar nor Becky Lynch. Oh, you could even say Steve Austin is the only thing that could possibly, maybe capitalize on that from a WWE standpoint. I don't see anything that could kind of eclipse it.
Yeah, even the gong now. I mean, that would just elicit an eye roll for me. Like, bring it to. Yeah, I don't think there's anything they can do that can match it. Sometimes you just got to hold your hands up and take the L, haven't you? You know.
And I think it's the first time. I can't remember another WWE pay-per-view which has been on a Saturday for the first time in forever. It's just really weird. Like, they are having to, rather than look at the root of the problem in terms of the talent and their storylines and their long-term booking plans. Oh well, rubbish. We got put by rates for a Sunday, move to Saturday. Okay, well we're struggling. Bring Goldberg in. Like, what was the point? I just don't. We'll touch on Goldberg because brought him up now, but Goldberg coming in and doing a program with Bobby Lashley puts him. I just don't see how Bobby Lashley's stock increases by doing a 6 weeks program with Goldberg. I know he's contractually obliged mainly for Saudi Arabia stuff, but I just don't see the logic behind it.
Yeah, that's all they've got, isn't it? Going back to the old guys, because they don't build new talent anymore. And yeah, you've got someone like CM Punk coming in, and like you said, he's already put over Britt Baker, he's already put over Darby Allin, and he's not even had a match yet. And you get Becky Lynch coming back, and she buries one of the young talents that they built up in Bianca Belair. I mean, it just shows the differences between the company. They've actually started building a star there in Bianca, one of the few recent NXT call-ups that have actually got over and done well with the crowd. And if she get buried in 27 seconds by returning Becky Lynch. What
would you make of the kind of... it's been really strange how NXT has been. NXT, you go back to the Hallican days of, say, 2016, 2017, when Joe was there, Nakamura, Finn Balor in his original run. And then now, do you think there's been a distinct power shift? I know Nick Khan is obviously running a lot of the decision-making processes behind the scenes, but it seems like NXT is suddenly becoming, I don't want to say gutted, but it looks a bit like the way ECW was brought in 2006, which is going to be a third brand big. And then over the years, this is very much not like Raw or SmackDown. It seems to be almost like a decisive decision in order to try to make it less than the two.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense to it, because they brought it onto the USA Network and sort of said, right, this is the third brand, but it's never really got to that level. And the people that are coming up these days, if you just come to the main roster and get buried, then their future endeavored within 6-12 months. It's just, I mean, I don't know, who was the last NXT call-up that actually got over?
Yeah, I'd say Matt Riddle, but I still raise questions about how he's been booked for, in terms of, you are waiting for Randy to finally, even Randy Orton was together 6 weeks, one of them walked out another. Now they're back together as tag champs. But you look at Keith Lee was an NXT champion, up to go 50-50. Karrion Kross, who's the current NXT champion, at the time recorded anyway. He's 3-2 in his first five. 3-2 in his first 5 matches, loses to Jeff Hardy in his debut. Samoa Joe was very swiftly knocked down the pecking order. Nakamura has been in the mid card ever since losing that really weird 3-month program with AJ, when they both had dual ball shots to go to a double DQ. It's just really weird. Like
you look at those names, like you mentioned Nakamura and Joe when we were talking about Ring of Honor. You look at those names, like Joe, Nakamura, Matt Riddle, and you think if they were in AEW, the stuff that they would be doing with them would just be incredible. And in WWE, it just doesn't happen, does it? I mean, Matt Riddle, he's hard to fuck up, right? I mean, he's just one of the best young talents out there.
He's got credibility.
We've got him riding around in a scooter and I don't know, looking like an idiot up against Randy with Randy. It just looks like a complete moron taking an RKO. And I mean, we said this earlier, didn't we? You don't get intelligent baby faces in WWE. It just doesn't happen.
When you look at Christian, fair enough. Christian's been difficult because he's obviously parachuted into the world title program on the back of Hangman Page, obviously it looks like his message is going to be due early. So they've had to, and it would have been a really nice bit of booking from 12 months ago with him and Kenny, and then him coming up short against Jericho 2 years ago. But, plans change, pal. Move on. But at least with Christian, they've built in quite well, and he's had good matches. And I think the match he had with Kaz on Diamond out a few months ago, for me, has been it's a very old school match, 20 minutes, slow build and work a hold, etc. But he's been built to win decent matches, and then he turned on Don Callis, so he actually had an answer for him. And then the way the book slid the share in the ring for him to win the title, and at least he's shown a little bit of nous rather than being made to look stupid. Whereas, you just don't get that from the across the pond or across to the other houses. Let's say in the it's just really strange. I probably listen to the reviews, and I'm a Sidgwick mega fan like yourself. I will listen to the reviews. I wouldn't be able to watch it Raw for 3 hours. And you look at I don't know how hot that crowd was for an hour of Rampage on Friday, and you think, would they not consider going at least shorting it to maybe 2 hours? I know one's a bit of an ask us when you're turning your nose, but a lot of media fees. But when you look at how hot that crowd was for an hour, you think 3 hours of Raw, it's a tough sell.
It feels like AEW book a wrestling show, whereas WWE just book, content to get advertising on board and to get TV deals. And, the product is second to that. Whereas I think with AEW, that's first and foremost, So
how do you see things transpiring now until the end of the year? You've got Punk, you've got Daniels coming, Miro's red hot as the TNT champion. You've got Cody against Malachi Black, who's obviously wanting to stop him retiring, or stop Cody retiring on his own terms. You've got an Inner Circle and MJF fallout. It's a lot of moving parts for TK, the Sugar Man, to try to get together. Yeah,
and you've got All Out's the next big thing, isn't it? So you've got Kenny and Christian at the top of the card. I can't see Kenny losing that belt, because that you've got to get to Kenny versus Hangman down the line whenever that does happen. And I think with AEW, you trust the process that they're going to do that right. Like you mentioned, there's been some bumps on the road, but that's going to come together. You're going to have the steel cage match, Young Bucks versus whoever wins the tournament.
Who do you think wins that tournament? I think we've got the Jurassic Express against presumably the Lucha Brothers.
I think it's going to be Jurassic Express. You would assume, and I think they could do it. I think that the fact that it's in a steel cage, they had a fantastic match on Dynamite, and they should have won.
You thought they should have won in terms of kayfabe, or if you were booking it?
No, not in terms of kayfabe, not if I was booking it, but in terms of taking the match at face value, they had their opportunities, and if it wasn't for the numbers game, they would have done it. So I think when you put the steel cage in there, unless the Young Bucks find some way to get their crew in the steel cage, which, as we know, is obviously possible, but is that why they booked it that way, to make us think that they could do it, or do you think they actually might drop them?
It's a weird one, isn't it? I think if Christian has, that would kind of make more sense. You feel that there's going to be a good program between Christian and Jungle Boy, and that would be the bit of a shine out moment for Jungle Boy to come through. And it makes sense. Yeah, again, in terms of like things actually making sense. A cage is there to keep out other people. I hate the fact WWF, WWE cage matches, you have to win by escaping the cage. It's stupid. A cage match is there because a heel keeps avoiding the babyface, or he has people interfere on his behalf, like Ric Flair and the Horsemen. The Horsemen are always there. Right, I've got you in a cage, and that's where there's no running out. That's why Dusty won the belt 35 years ago this month against Ric Flair. The Horsemen were all barred from ringside. I've got you in a cage. I win. It kind of makes sense from that standpoint. And then if you have Jungle Boy with a belt and Christian has lost the TNA Impact title by then, you have Christian turn on Jungle Boys and you think you're better than me now. You Billy Big Bollocks with your belt. Bang. And that's something. So that makes sense. And then you have, if the Bucks lose their titles, and then you have the Good Brothers lose their titles, and the Elite are crumbling, I think you'll see Kenny start to, which he's already shown signs of like going slightly a little bit mad and erratic, which he's been brilliant. And Don Callis has been brilliant. And
fantastic, yeah.
It's so weird. The fact, I think Bret Hart's brilliant. Bret Hart's the king of everything. Bret Hart brought him in like 96, 97. And I remember I used to watch Raw every Friday night religiously. 10 o'clock Sky Sports 3. And my mum wouldn't let me stay up that late. I was at my dad's house. He was fine with it. And he was the jackal there with Kurgan and the Truth Commission. It's so weird to see him, how he's progressed in 24, 25 years along the line. But they have, AEW is so good at just making these older, more experienced talents come credible. The way Tully is with FTR and the Pinnacle, the way Arn is with, I'm not convinced with Arn. Speaking of Tully, what do you make? I mean, Ric Flair's been trending in the week for all different reasons. Yeah, choo. What do you think will happen if he comes to AEW? Do you think we'll see a Horseman? Do you think we'll see a Horseman reunion?
They'll do something, but it's not going to be like a long-term thing. But I mean, they've already sort of got their own little Horseman with MJF stable. I think that's kind of what that is. Yeah, I mean, if they get Rick in, cool. It's not going to move the needle, but it's exciting, and yeah, I'm sure they'll do something having all four of those guys there. But,
what have you made so far? You mentioned the Pinnacle, but MJF won his big blow-off match with Jericho the week. I think the idea of the 5 labors of Jericho was one of those ideas that looks better. It was better on paper than it was in practice. I think I'm not a big fan of death matches, so some people like the Nick Gage stuff. It's not for me. Juventud looked like he missed a pace or two. I thought the match with Sean Spears was good. Wardlow didn't really click likewise, and the crowd was a bit flat by the end of Dynamite last week. But I think you've got to respect the idea from Jericho of putting over. MJF has won the clean in the middle to elevate him to presumably the next level.
Yeah, but fair play to AEW getting someone like Nick Gage in. Like you say, death matches aren't for everybody, but he was the hottest thing going at the time, having just had that match with Matt Cardona. The fact that they got him in for one match, brilliant. I thought, you mentioned Juventud didn't really. It was a nice way to do it, but I thought it kind of messed up in terms of scheduling with going from Gage to Juventud.
From one extreme to the other, yeah.
Yeah, and then the last one with Wardlow, I thought there were some nice little bits in there that sort of led you to the fact that Wardlow versus MJF is going to be a really nice feud coming down the line at some point. The fact that he said to Wardlow, don't mess this one up, basically, and then he did.
And then give him the apple as well.
And then he had to get the job done himself. But that's probably a long way down the line. But yeah, that'll be Wardlow's face turn, I guess, at some point down the line, which will be like his Batista moment kind of thing.
You see that. Yeah. I mean, at least the fact, again, in terms of long term, they've been together, I think, 18 months now. I'm pretty sure it was the match against Cody in Atlanta was February last year, which seems an eternity ago. But in terms of, at least it's the fact that I always go back to the best way this was done was when Big Bubba Rogers, the big boss man, was brought in as Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette was, I think this was hired by his mother to be his protector when he was with the Midnight Express. And they teased that for 2 years before he was lured away to go to WWF. So they never actually got the blow off. But I think Jim Cornette said, Dusty, who was the booker at the time, said, you can't do things so almost prematurely. Like if a team's together, and I hate the, what almost like can they coexist? Tag teams do it. What a load of nonsense. Teams have to be together for a period of time, or as a faction. Otherwise, the separation means nothing. Like if you were together with a girlfriend for 3 years and you split, I'm not wishing any discrepancies on yourself or your daughter behind you, but rather than if you were together for 3 weeks, obviously it's not going to have that much of an impact. So you have to give these times to, and the way AEW's kind of built the Sammy storyline alongside MGF and likewise Sean Spears, and Darby and Cody have got, I think they're called legacy feuds. There's so many seeds being planted at the minute. And kind of CM Punk kind of alluded to. Just in terms of Punk, where do you see his direction? We've got Derby on, I think, the 4th of September. Where do you see him going until the end of the year?
I don't think we're going to see him wrestling every single week. I think he is going to be that special attraction. I think if they bring in a Daniel Bryan, or we can finally call him Bryan Danielson again, he'll be the kind of guy that you can have wrestling every week. Maybe he'll be the TNT champion, and you'll have putting on a classic every single week on Dynamite, that kind of thing. CM Punk is going to be a bit more of a special attraction, but I do expect to see him quite regularly on Dynamite and on Rampage with his 10-minute promos, and that's fine because I could listen to him talk all day. It was only 20 minutes the start of on Friday night, and you wanted more, didn't you? If he sat there in the ring for the whole hour talking, I wouldn't have minded, to be honest with you. So I think we'll see more of that. As to who he faces after Darby Allin, I don't really care. I just sort of trust the bookers there to do things right. There's so many dream matches. You can put him up with anyone on the roster, and it'll be fantastic. Great to see him against MJF, Sammy Guevara, Jungle Boy, like all these matches. These are young kids that AEW have built up over the last couple of years. I said to you earlier, they'd not been on TV 2 years ago, and now they're building these stars, something WWE doesn't do, and CM Punk's just going to be there to put them all over. And that doesn't mean that he's got to go in and lose. I think he will beat Darby Allin, but AEW have a good way of getting people over in defeat, So
and that's if you listen to big fan of Busted Open Radio with Bully Ray and Mark Henry and Bubba Ray Dudley always alludes to in a match somebody wins, somebody will always get over in defeat, and there's no better way of, which is kind of what Darby did in his first, I think, 2 or 3 matches with Cody. He lost, but that's fine. You gain credibility. Pac did it, I think, when he first started with the company. But and kind of Jungle Boy the same. You lose nothing in defeat if you've shown you can go toe to toe with the guy or one of the biggest stars in the industry. Look what they did with Dante Martin the other week. 20-year-old kid in the ring with Kenny Omega, and you're already sitting there thinking, wow, this guy could be world champion in 10 years. Absolutely. I think he's only 20 years old. Dynamite. Yeah. His brother's currently on the shelf. And that's the thing. They've done so well in terms of these names that are now so much more familiar with, you'd say, like a mainstream audience that weren't 2-3 years ago. MGF is the biggest heel in the company. You've got immediately the Elite are on a different level. Then the Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, I can never pronounce his name right. Just a couple we haven't mentioned before. In terms of the tag team division, you mentioned that you could see Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus winning the belts. Would you be concerned about I've seen it whispered in other parts about the level of the kind of like the division. It's kind of gone quiet because obviously FTR's out with Dax's injury. But would you have any concerns if it wasn't to be, let's say, Jurassic Express? Who else would dethrone the Young Bucks?
Sorry, one sec.
She's very good.
Who else would dethrone the Young Bucks?
Proud and Powerful, who obviously came in with a big fanfare and had a few with the Bucks immediately. The Lucha Brothers have gone a bit cold. I hate the storyline of Andrade. It's so far-fetched, and I really hope him and Pac have a banger at the pay-per-view. Otherwise, he's struggling in a big pool.
Yeah, in terms of the tag team division, I don't really think there is anyone else that could do it. I think the Varsity Blondes are a long way off being at that level. You mentioned Proud and Powerful. The matches just haven't been that great for me of late. So yeah, I guess it's Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, or we're going to see the Young Bucks holding it for even longer, which is fine by me. I mean,
I'm
fantastic feels. All the matches that they put on are brilliant. So yeah, we'll just see where it goes.
I'm a man of.
Is there anyone that you think that can take it that are worthy yet?
I'm a man of Jim Crockett Promotions. So you have a strong heel tag team, you have a strong heel world champion, and you have a babyface Chase. It's very simple. But as you saw with Friday, the thrill is in the anticipation. Like, you had a week to build. It is going to be Punk, right? Like they've said, and then even Kenny on Wednesday with a Chick Magnet shirt, which was just. Yeah.
And the week before, Cookie Monster, I think it was.
Darby Allin saying best in the world. But you want to the point where it has to be this. This has to happen now. And you look at Flair in the 80s, he would get into predicaments where the babyface has to win, and he somehow escapes. Which, God, I want to see him beat. And that's the draw of pro wrestling. You want desperately to see, which you probably will be. I have to see Hangman beat Kenny Omega for the world title. And given the fact AEW books with a decent bit of common sense, the fact that they've been in Houston and they've been in Jacksonville and they're in the Carolina, the hometown hero getting the big match and the big pop, and like Sammy proposing to his missus and then wins a big match. It's not difficult. Like, if you apply a bit of logic, he's one of the biggest exciting young talents on the roster. Right, he's just proposed to his now fiance. Right, good big match with Sean Spears. Nice send off. Like, and now he comes across looking like such a huge star because of the reception he got. And then Vince will have.
As well, the week before him getting the opportunity to give the contract to Fuego del Sol. I mean, it's just a nice moment. They're best friends in real life, So Tony gives him that opportunity to, and that was a shoot as well, right? Fuego didn't know that he was going to be getting the contract, and it just feels like they're a nice company of nice people who do nice things. And then you look at the other company and you see, we've already mentioned like Bianca being dropped out in 30 seconds, and it's just frustrating.
We spent a lot of time talking about AEW. I just mentioned about SummerSlam because, I mean, if you're watching this, I doubt you care about spoilers anyway. But yeah, Bobby Lashley defeated Goldberg to retain. Roman defeated John Cena to retain. I don't think anyone doubted really any of those. But then it was a surprise appearance by Brock Lesnar to confront Roman Reigns at the end. It'd be interesting. Paul Heyman would probably be the biggest interesting point from that, in terms of if he's ruled away back to Brock, I'll stay with Roman. But the fact that Becky returned, you mentioned off air, it was very similar to Hogan winning the title against Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9 after Bret Hart, who kind of carried the company for 6 months prior to. He beat Ric Flair, I think, in November 92, and then wrestled Razor Ramon at the 93 Royal Rumble, carried on, loses to Yokozuna, who then loses to Hulk Hogan in 15 seconds. It just makes everyone else look so bad, almost by default. And whilst Becky Lynch is a draw, and I thought WWE almost screwed up her big momentum build post Survivor Series up to WrestleMania, and the match was really, really poor against Ronda and Charlotte. Just having a beat Bianca like that, it really weird, really strange.
I just don't think they think that far ahead, do they? I mean, you look at AEW and they've probably got the next 2 years sort of mapped out of where they're going to go with certain people. And then WWE have just got to go, shit, they brought in CM Punk. Okay, get Becky in, give her the title. Get Charlotte in. Well, not get Charlotte in, but put the title back on Charlotte. And you've got Nikki Ash and Bianca Belair, who, two baby faces who they're trying to build up, and they're just destroyed. And doesn't make sense. You're never going to.
Would you not think? Surely you have Bianca successfully defend, have Becky confront her at the end of, I'll explain this on Monday, on Friday, whatever. You build like the art of being the reason why they were called promoters is because you'd promote wrestling matches or you'd promote the next show. So the idea of this, it's almost seems to be lost. Episodic television, where you're building stories one week to the other, it seems completely lost at this stage of, let's just see what we can do tonight, or let's just see what we can do tomorrow.
I mean, you kind of want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but they've told us time and time again that we shouldn't give them the benefit of the doubt. But let's see where it goes. Maybe, they're going to build to a big match at the next pay-per-view, I assume, between those two. But you could have done it exactly the same, built to a big match with those two at the pay-per-view, like you say, and not take the belt off Bianca Belair within 27 seconds. That's the difference. Frustrating.
And just looking further afield, JJ, we'll probably reconvene this time next week. In terms of previewing the next week, you've got Brock and Roman presumably meeting at SmackDown on Friday. You've probably got Becky. But Becky's presumably now on SmackDown. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if she was on Raw tomorrow night. And then we've got Punk at Dynamite on Wednesday. What do you think is going to happen in the next week? So,
well, is it the end of John Cena? Is that the last we've seen of him?
I think so. He's come back as a favour. Like, fans are back. Go on, pal. We need you to make Roman. There's a good lad.
Yeah, so we just move on to Brock against Roman. When's that going to be for? I mean, are they?
I couldn't tell you the WWE pay-per-view. Back in the day, I would know the pay-per-views religiously. It'd be, Over the Edge and Unforgiven April, May, and then you'd build to Fully Loaded to SummerSlam in August. Now, no idea.
You'd think that they'd want to have it on one of the big ones, right? But you wait until November for Survivor Series.
But it's the last 2 or 3 years they've done champion as champion, haven't they? And they kind of
they have
pulled the trigger and put the belt onto Randy because they didn't want Drew to lose to Roman last year, and then lost it back the week after, which is just ridiculous.
Okay, so we're going to Roman versus Brock. Obviously, we're going to have Bianca and Becky. The thing I'm most excited about is seeing what Punk does in his 20-minute cameo on Dynamite. To be honest, that's what I'll be tuning in for. What about you? What are you excited about for the next week? Potentially Mysterios. Are they going to be breaking up down the line? They lost to the Usos at SummerSlam. Do you want to see Dominic?
SmackDown. I want to see what happens with John Moxley, because he has kind of hinted he's bubbling, and the Dudley boys alluded to the fact that maybe he's a new dad. He's not getting much sleep. He's a bit cranky.
Grumpy dad. Yeah.
Grumpy dad. He's kind of a bit like the way FTR have gone into. I messaged Crash a few times because he's a very old school JCB fan. So if he wants clips or anything, and he said he's trying to channel his inner Ollie Anderson, and Ollie was the 45-year-old grumpy dad of the Horsemen.
Yeah,
Moxley is hinting that he's not happy with things. He had a pop at Tanahashi 2 weeks ago after he lost against Lance Archer. He beat those 2.0 kids last week in that 3-way, and then he's ended up headlining a Rampage. He was in a heel hooking, but none of this. Just got him in the choke, which is really cool. But his promos have hinted like he's getting, and I wonder if there's a heel turn in the works, and I wonder whether that heel turn is projected onto CM Punk. I think that would be the way to get the biggest heat on Moxley would be to have him attack Punk. And that kind of seals it. And that's the problem where they're going wrong with Britt Baker. Britt Baker's kind of a heel by default, according to AEW booking. She's the biggest star in the company. I want to be there while she's comes out and just do the DMD. Yeah, exactly. She just oozes star quality and charisma. And I think they need a bit like, if you want to make Moxley a heel, he has to attack the biggest babyface. If you want to make a heel big enough to challenge Britt Baker, they have to beat her, who is kind of de facto the biggest star and the biggest babyface in the women's division. So Chris Statlander isn't it. You need somebody like a Jade Cargill to beat the holy, what out of Britt and make her like she is a threat. The babyface has to be in jeopardy, which is the whole crux of pro wrestling. And I think I could see Moxley turning on Punk. It'd be a weird bit of full circle, given the fact wasn't it Punk who brought the Shield in, and he wanted Moxley, and they wanted somebody else in spite of him. Am I right in thinking that?
Bit of a blank time in my wrestling fandom, to be honest with you. So
I think they said they wanted Roman was the guy, and then Seth, and they wanted somebody else instead of John Moxley. I think And it was Punk who fought for him because he'd seen Moxley in the Indies. He was the worker, what he'd seen as the worker of the bunch. And they had a bit of a program before he left, obviously 7 years ago. But Moxley's a different guy then. It's like, a man to a boy. But it's interesting. There's a lot of things that need to click kind of before all out. You're probably going to... Pac Andrade's confirmed. You've got Kenny against Christian Cage confirmed. You've got the tag match. Apart from that, there's not much else. Britt's obviously going to defend the belt against someone. Miro against someone. I think, though, Eddie Kingston made a challenge, or he had a challenge from Miro to him, which I think they'll do that at Arthur Ashe because that's New York. Eddie will get a huge pop. But then you still got...
Arthur Ashe is where we're expecting Danielson back as well?
I mean, I hope so. The thing is now, the problem is for Dragon, nothing will compare to that from Punk. They should have done Danielson first, because how would you top that as an entrance?
Yeah. You don't need to top it. It's fine. I mean, it's a different thing, isn't it? But Brian's it was in WWE 6 months ago. It's not like a 7-year thing. But I mean, it's still fantastic if he comes back, and that AEW use him right. So, you won't top Punk. Nothing will top Punk. But that's okay. We can still have other nice things.
In terms of receptions, and you must have, I don't know, go down the WWE route, saying moment. How does that compare in anything else, let's say, you've seen from your fandom?
It doesn't. I've never heard a pop like that. And
why though? Why has he?
It's been 7 years, Jack. I mean, every single time that there's been a show in Chicago and other places as well, non-stop CM Punk chants. And
but that's what I mean. Why? As somebody like JJ, we're roughly, I'm obviously older, in the same age group. Why did CM Punk strike such a chord for wrestling fans between the age of, I want to say, like late 20s to early mid 30s? Why was it he, more so than anyone, became the guy? A bit like Brett did with, I think, wrestling fans of a certain age in the 90s. Why is it that CM Punk was that guy that was held in such regard by the hardcore audience?
Well, it was similar to me for the Daniel Bryan sort of yes movement, right? It's like that guy that everyone enjoys, that everyone loves, that the company don't want to put over, and they've got to scratch and claw and battle their way to get to the top of that card. And even then, getting WrestleMania matches against Undertaker, and it goes on first, and still getting disrespected. He still never got the main event at Mania.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is. It's that you see these guys who are talented, but it's almost like Vince doesn't see it, and you just want the best for them, and they never quite got there, and that's why he had to leave at the end of it. But that's what it is, isn't it? It's not, fans don't give a shit about who is being rammed down their throat, as so many people have said. Like, this is why Roman Reigns never got over as a face. The fans want who they want, and I think that's why CM Punk and also Daniel Bryan got over so much, sort of in spite of the booking, right?
Well, but yeah, when ECW debuted for their first weekly television show, it was in the Hammerstein Ballroom, 2006. Yeah. Punk was debuted, and the crowd noise for him was tremendous because he'd been on the Indies for about 6-8 years. He was the ROH World Champion. He was the head of the ring. He was head trainer at the Ring of Honor Academy. He worked in PWG, worked in IWA Mid-South. He worked around everywhere, and he talked about him and Colt Cabana would drive everywhere to go and work, wrestle some night and then go somewhere else. And I don't think that Vince McMahon doesn't like it if you're getting those types of cheers without putting his stamp on you. And like, this is our guy now, pal. And then he was a Paul Heyman guy. Paul Heyman wanted him to win the Hell in Elimination Chamber at December to Dismember, the worst of a pay-per-view of all time, which didn't. I think, did Lashley win? Lashley beat, I think, the Big Show in the last two.
Yeah, Lashley's ringing a bell.
Complete. That's why we got
Believe it or
Durag
not,
Vince.
I've not gone back and rewatched that one.
That's why we got Durag Vince a few months afterwards. God almighty. How is this man still alive and in charge of a $1 billion company with dementia at 79?
Matt Cardona parodied Durag Vince, didn't he? Did you see that on GCW? Matt Cardona with the belt that he's got there, and
really?
had a durag on, like, looks very similar to Durag Vince with the belt. But anyway, side note. Yeah, you mentioned Colt Cabana there. Do you think after all that the two of them have been through the ups and downs that we're going to see anything CM Punk and Colt Cabana? Maybe just walking past them backstage and a little side eye, or maybe something a little bit more. I
don't think they'll allude to it. So David Bixenspan, who does a lot of stuff with Outside the Ring, he's a big fan of the No Context Slayer page, and I messaged him because he put a question in asking that in the press conference afterwards, saying, have you made peace with people you might have had problems in the locker room? Because we're all about positivity today. We're not going to discuss anything negative. So you would presume that there are some underlying issues that happen.
He said his answer to that was that there are no issues in the locker room, right? Or
yeah,
so does that mean the hatchet's been buried, or? I think Punk seemed like the type to me to hold grudges, but this is a different CM Punk now. He seems to be in a better place mentally. Well, like he said, he's healed spiritually, mentally, physically. So maybe let go of those grudges.
You'd hope so, wouldn't you? Again, and you'd realise that it's a bit like when you and a guy. I'd always say, like, if your girlfriend cheated on you with another guy, and you go and beat him up, but then you realise, why are we mad at each other? And she's the skank here. And this is like, why are we annoyed at each other? We were suing, WWE was suing us, and we've had to defend ourselves. You wonder if there was a meeting of the minds, and you realise they're the evil ones.
The cheating girlfriend, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, she's the one who couldn't control herself. But yeah, this is kind of like where everyone, almost collective, it's a weird shape the industry's turned out in terms of, it's almost like the territories again. And WWE is kind of isolated on their own. So if you look at TNA and Impact Wrestling, you mentioned Game Changer Wrestling, you've got PWE propping up, which is where Malachi Black popped up last month. And you've got Ring of Honor, and you've got NWA, and then obviously AEW. It's so cool for somebody who's an 80s wrestling fan like myself to see the cooperation between companies, which, unless you've been around before 2001, that just didn't happen. Ring of Honor and TNA shared talent up until 2004. And this is why CM Punk. You will not see CM Punk in Impact. TNA pulled all their Ring of Honor talent, all their talent who would work for Ring of Honor in 2004, and they just forbid them from working from them, which is why Christopher Daniels and AJ Styles were there. And CM Punk stayed loyal to Ring of Honor, and he became the guy, and that's why people rallied around him. And then in 2007, Samoa Joe and Christopher Daniels and Alex Shelley and Homicide, they were stopped from working Ring of Honor, which is kind of why they went downhill afterwards. So there's never been this level of the forbidden door being opened ever, which is it's so weird, and it's so nice to see. Thunder Rosa popping up, and then you've got Christian on Impact on Friday, and Ric Flair is going to be on the NWA show in St. Louis next weekend. He'll probably be on AEW next month. It's such a wild time to be a fan of professional wrestling, I suppose, compared to having to slug it out in 2003, 4, 5, when it was just turgid stuff.
Yeah. Kofi Kingston, Dolph Ziggler, Randy Orton, rinse, repeat, that kind of thing. Look, I mean, dream big because we've probably dreamed about CM Punk and coming back for a long time, and it's happened. So anything's possible in this new world of wrestling. So.
I still can't believe it. I was watching. I'm pretty sure. I don't know whether I woke her up. I was watching it on the iPad in bed. I remember Rachel Black, after Rachel Blackmore won the Grand National in April. She just kept saying, "I can't believe it. I just can't believe it." And I'm now watching him in an AEW ring. This is so weird. I can't believe this is happening. I don't. Yeah. Regardless what happens, it's a good year because CM Punk's back in a wrestling ring, and fingers crossed we'll see a lot more of him in 2021.
Yeah, well, look, we can catch up next Sunday. We will have seen Punk on Dynamite. And catch up and see what he says, and see if we've got a bit of a clearer picture of what might be in the pipeline for him, and the rest of the week in wrestling. We're probably going to have to wrap it up about here. I don't want to leave too big of a job for producer Frankie, right?
It's not too much of a job at all. Frankie, if you are listening, or your assistant Joe, I'm sure you do a sparkling job. JJ, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully to speak to you this time next week, and stay safe, and we've got a lot more to talk about next week.